Take this presentation, everyone. Since we have like free seat in front, as you see, we please invite you to come forward, please, especially the one who sit behind in the back. Yeah, please come forward. It's a requirement. If you don't come forward, I will come to you. Please, the three back lines come forward. Move forward here, please. We are going to begin our event soon after we already confirmed with our seat. Again, please, three back seats, please come forward to fulfill the seats for the front seat, please come. Okay, thank you. Second and third line is still empty. Please have a seat there. All right. All right. So we are going to begin our event. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Very good afternoon, everyone. The Excellency, the Dean of Faculty of Education, Universitas Islam International Indonesia, Professor Nina Nurmila, PhD, the Head of PhD in Education Program, Dr. Bambang Sumintono, the Head of MA in Education Program, Dr. Tati Latipatut Durya, all distinguished lecturers and staff of the Faculty of Education, UIII, and special honorable to the today's speaker, Dr. Zulfa Zakia, not to mention all beloved guests, audience, and fellows. Welcome to the 34th Lunch Talk, Critical Literacies, Gender and Social Inclusion, conducted by the Faculty of Education, Universitas Islam International Indonesia 2024. My name is Muhammad Sabar Mubarak. I am PhD student batch 2. Here I am standing as your moderator of today's event. I will be leading the flow of today's agenda. Well, in this our monthly event, the 34th lunch talk, we invite one of the scholars in resident or SIR, Dr. Zulfa Sakia. Thanks, Doctor, for being with us. And she will be speaking about critical literacies, gender, and social inclusion. I believe this is one of very important topic for all of us as an educator. But before we listen to the presentation of the speaker, let me invite the Dean of the Faculty of Education to give opening remarks. So please join me to welcome Professor Nina Nurmila, PhD, come to the stage.
Is it on? Okay, it's on. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Alhamdulillahirabbil alamin wassalatu wassalamu ala Muhammadin sayyidil mursalin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wa hlul 'uqdatam min lisani yafqahu qawli amma ba'd. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm very glad to see you, and you are all seated already by 1 p.m. So I do really appreciate you coming before the time of the program. Yeah, let's keep this tradition within our faculty. Uh, Thank you very much also for all lectures here. I can see Dr. Tatiwati, Dr. Destina, of course our speaker, Dr. Zulfa Satya, and then Dr. Arif and Dr. Anda for being here. Yeah. Okay, thank you also, moderator. I'm glad today that we will have Dr. Zulfa Sahia, one of the scholars in residence. I believe that you have already met her, maybe in your classes also, and also in the female dorm and Ron. Yeah, we are glad to have her here. As Sabar mentioned that she will talk about critical literacies, gender and social inclusions. Actually, I'm curious why it is like plural, literacies, not literacy. She will explain to us later. And I agree with Sabar that this topic is important and timely because I think we need to be critical of the text or the information in the media. That's why critical literacies are very important. Yeah. And yesterday I accompanied her teaching in the equity and education class, and she taught about the politics of development, in which she invite our students to be critical of the policy. Yeah, in Indonesian language, policy is kebijakan. Kebijakan is like very close to kebajikan. That's why with the choice of word itself have the intention that you just need to accept this. Even though behind the kebijakan or the policy, there are so many interests, yeah, which might not necessarily represent or each group's interest, yeah. And by taking into account the gender and social inclusion, I think also this is very important because sometimes text also exclude women, yeah, making women invisible, yeah. That's why, and especially in our society, which is a patriarchal system, women tend to be seen as subordinate being, and that's why when there is a choice between men and women who will be the leader, the choice sometimes goes straight forward to the male. Yes, even in the current context that of the general election, I can see many gender bias of the was that the campaign like why should you choose women? You should choose men to be the leader. Yeah. Or there is also in the Jakarta's campaign that the old janda, that's the single, the widow, yeah, need to marry a young, jobless man, yeah, following so Susono, the vice, the candidate for the vice governor, following Khadijah and Nabi Muhammad. That's what he says. Yeah, he didn't realize that how dangerous is that statement for us educated people. Yeah. Well, I think gender inclusion is very important because I'm currently doing research on the women's leadership in Islamic higher education, in which the percentage of female leadership is very low, 12%. So there are only 7 out of 58 Islamic higher education is currently being led by women. But the leadership of female rector is actually does unfortunately doesn't guarantee female representation also in the top leadership of women. Like last week, Ibu Cherry, Afra, and I visited West Sumatra, and we found out that even the female rector doesn't have any single woman in the leadership position like vice rectors or the dean. So that's very unfortunate. Yeah, this shows the need of affirmative action in pushing women to be leader, to be visible. And in fact, if we look at the Islamic text, the Quran has provided examples of affirmative action. For example, in the context when women were not involved in economic transaction, the Quran assigned women to be one of the witnesses. But reading the Quran out of context or using patriarchal lenses, the Quranic verse on witness is regarded as or interpreted that the value of women is half of men. So I think that's the dangerous of out of context interpretations. Yeah. I think that's all from me, and I'm looking forward to listening to Dr. Zulfa Sahia's lecture, and I admire her mobility and academic excellence. So I think she is a model for you, yeah. In terms of like educational background, she finished her first degree from UNES, yeah, IKIP Semarang previously, and she continued her study in Latrobe University in Melbourne, and then she gained her PhD from Auckland University in New Zealand. And not stopping there, she recently come back from Ohio State University as a Fulbrighter, yeah. And then she is with us now. So please enjoy your opportunity that she is around you to follow her academic excellence, yeah. Thank you very much. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you very much for very insightful opening remark, Jit. And yes, I do agree that we are looking forward to hearing from the presenters. But of course, before we really come to the main agenda, which is the presentation, let me please give you a little bit information about our speakers today. And I will be reading her biography. It was written by herself. Instead of writing her curriculum vitae that has a lot of very long academic excellence, I'm going to read this narrative way from her directly. I proceed today. Thank you. Okay, so our speakers today is Julpa Sakia and Tesol PhD. Yulpa Sakya is Associate Professor at the English Department, Faculty of Language and Art, and the Director of Literacy Research Center at Universitas Negeri Semarang. Yulpa is Fulbright Visiting Fellow at Ohio State University, USA in 2023, and is the Communication Director of the Indonesian Young Academy of Science, Almi. She she has a doctorate in education from the School of Critical Studies in Education, the University of Auckland, with the support from the New Zealand ASEAN Scholars Award. Julfa receives her Bar Mosental Award from International Literacy Association in 2022 and Early Career Scholar Prize for Best Paper in 2023 from Critical Policy Studies Journal Problematizing Policy Article. Julfa's research interests spans from critical literacies, critical discourse analysis, and gender studies, and has published in the area. Her work has been published in journals such as Gender and Education, Globalization, Societies and Education, Pedagogy, Culture and Society, Critical Policy Studies, and many more. She is the chief of editor in Education in Indonesia, Critical Perspective on Equity and Social Justice, published by Springer 2023. 2023. So please, Doctor, may you come forward with me? Okay. Before we begin your presentation, I would like to say hi and greeting for you for a while, Doctor. Please, you may use the mic. How are you today, Doctor? I can read for you. Sorry. Okay, it's working as well. Okay. Yeah. Again, how are you today, Doctor?
I'm feeling good and I'm feeling a bit nervous because I'm standing in front of the experts of gender studies as well as literacy. So I would love to hear their feedback on my research, which I will about to share. All right, so we also are really very happy, of course, to be having you here. And about the material, do you notice something that's now going viral from our university? The library. Exactly. And you know that, yeah. I think the library is getting viral because both of us are here. Is it like causality that Pak Arif is here and the library is getting viral? I do agree, yeah, yeah. And last day, the update from the library, they received 1,000 visitors. Can you imagine? So I think it's related with the literacy issues. So meaning that people coming to the library, they want to, of course, read or maybe it's healthy or whatever. But again, literacy issue was there, and our library is one of the representative of how we have to be careful about literacy, reading, understanding, and to be living together. That's I think what literacy means. Okay, of course, we are very happy to be having you again here as our speaker today for the 34th lunch talk. And anyway, are you ready? Doctor? Ready. Exactly. Thank you very much. So please, Mr. Sofian, could you show the presentation? Okay, everyone, please keep standing applause to Dr. Rupa Sadia to have for the presentation. Until to the end. Thank you very much, and please allow me to stand up here. And it's been an honor to be here, standing in front of you, especially the Dean of the Faculty of Education, who is herself the expert in gender theories and gender perspectives, and also Bu Tatiwati, the expert in literacy herself, Bu Destina, and in numeracy. So literacy and numeracy is like, it takes two tango to progress. And here, literacy and numeracy in Pak Arif herself and Pak Anda. Thank you very much. And also, all of you and everyone, thank you very much to come here and then so that we will discuss this very important topic later after the session. So here, back in my home institution, here I'm the scholar in residence at the UIII, where I come here right after my postdoctoral degree scholarship at the Ohio State University because United States, they say it's like the center of gravity of literacy studies. So that's why I would like to go there. And it's an institution that also trained Dr. Tati Wagi here, so I would love to experience that. And I come back here in Indonesia and deliberately propose this institution for my next journey because for my academic ability, because I would love to work together collaboratively with Ibu Nariwati. So it's been an honor to be here to learn and to experience this very exciting academic excellence. And the topic that I'm going to share in this talk is critical literacies, gender and social inclusion. It's one of my current research these last 3 years. And in this okay, so it's this way. So in this presentation, firstly, perhaps we need to ask why gender? And as Prof. Nina has also mentioned, that gender is really a very critical issue that we need to address. But I'm going to argue that first things first, gender is the mother of all critical perspectives, I think. Perhaps when we look at the um, epistemologically speaking, perhaps it's Marxist, but I think before Karl Marx had that kind of theory, um, um, feminist perspective is actually was on the go. It's a mother of critical perspectives because right after feminism, the first wave of feminism movement, then it emerged. There are many other critical perspectives like postmodern terms, cultural terms, and so on. And by using um, gender perspective, we can embrace other issues such as social justice, social inclusion, and lately is ecology. Why ecology? Because the nature and women, they both share similar responsibilities, that they have the job to reproduce life. So mother has the job to reproduce, human beings, and then the nature has the job to reproduce the life itself. So that's why ecofeminists would argue that line of argument. And by using gender perspective, I think it offers alternative thinking to address this very critical issue. I would argue that it's not only the issue of gender equality that we can address by using gender perspectives, but also other kinds of social inclusion, such as disability, and how to protect other marginalized groups. And in sharing the research findings and in this presentation, I would like to base on my current three works. The first is a book in education in Indonesia. It's a collective works that embrace critical thinkers in Indonesia, including Pak Bambang Sumintono, also is one of our contributors in this book. And we would like to build that network of critical scholars in Indonesia who think education as a field in a critical way. And the second one is this article published in Gender and Education. It was hard work to publish in this journal, and it concerns about women's movement and the critical literacies that they use. That there was no story children's books in Sundanese. Isn't that amazing? Where even these days, we can rarely find Indonesian book or children's book in Bahasa Indonesia. But at that time, she had this vision that there should be children's book or children's literature in Sundanese. So she had that radical and progressive ideas to provide quality literature or literary works for children, so that children would be able to read and connect themselves in their culture. And in 1907, she also built a school for women so that mothers could read those books for their children. So it's amazing that we had this kind of woman that age in that period. We had this idea. And the next one is, of course, Kartini. Uh, Anyone here have watched the Kartini's movie in Netflix? Yes? No? Yes, okay, good. Yeah, I think you need to watch it. Yeah, Sastro anyway. And Kartini is very popular correspondence with the Dutch feminists those days. It's Stella Zeehandelaar and also Abindanon. Abindanon was the Minister of Education of those days that was posted and signed by the Dutch colonial government to propose educational policy in Indonesia. And because of her correspondence and because of her discussion with Stella Zeehandelaar as well as Mr. Abendanon, I think Kartini was the only woman that day that was heard by the colonial government to then formulate policy in education. Isn't that amazing? So the book or the correspondence, it was then published as Habis Gelap Terbitlah Terang. So after dark, here comes light, or the door twisted is stop click. You know. And also because of her correspondence, then was formulated the policy, the Estische Politik, one which is education. And if you read her letters, they're all concerns about women's and education, including literacy. And the last one is Rohana Kudus. She is the sister of Sultan Syahrir. So she was growing up in a journalist kind of family. Rohana Kudus was the first female journalist that regularly wrote for think Bumi Putri, the regular kind of media national for the issue that takes up the issue of women. And she built school for women as well in Kota in West Sumatra in 1911. Imagine those days. Maybe today it's not surprising. You have WhatsApp, you have, um, you have WhatsApp, you have, other kinds of social media to talk to each other. But those days, how did they talk to each other? Like telepathy or that spiritual? No, right? But they are just some three examples, and I'm sure that there were many other female figures that advocated for women's rights and for their education. And these three, they had the concerns on women's literacy. And after that, a women's movement in 19, or a women's movement meeting in 1928 was that formed. But this was the birth of the, what's the word? Yeah. That's a historical kind of overview. But now, when we're looking at, or when we're discussing the issue of literacy and gender in a more contemporary kind of period, and when we're looking at it in a global level, this is the data that we can look at. From the data, the United Nations Department of Economics and Social Affairs, their research found out that two-thirds of the world's illiterate are women. Can you imagine? So if you've got like 10 people here in this room, then 6 of them are women. And that's a global kind of data, a global trend. Well, it's not really trendy, but it's a global trend. And here, it doesn't really mean, here, don't take this data wrong. It doesn't really mean that women are less able learners. But it is really highlight the fact that there is a gender-based discrimination on education that will confine women or hinder women to access education. And it also shows that there is a wider domestic division of labor, who will, at the family level, that will decide who will go to school and who will do the cooking, the washing, and all other domestic labor that were invisible, unacknowledged, unrecognized, and perhaps that's why they can say that women got some kind of subordinate position in the society. That's the data. But another data here from PISA, when we're looking at a more academic kind of data, um, here, the reading performance, when we compare between two gender, boys and girls, you see that the data for girls, they are the straight line, whereas for boys is the dotted line. And here the data shows that over the years, girls always outperform boys. Right? So here there is a kind of contradiction between these two data. So the question is why? The kind of data what I'm thinking. When we look at the data more deeply between the developed and developing countries, the developing countries is the one that has women are most illiterate. The two-thirds of them are the illiterate population, whereas the developed countries, girls outperform boys. So here, the literacy rate are different. In the developing countries, the trend is the literacy rate is low for women, but then for in the developed countries, girls have a higher literacy rate. So here, when we are looking at the social context deeper to answer why such contradiction happens, because in the developing countries there is this added domestic burden, as I mentioned to you, the lack of access to clean water will have to force women to find water and to bring some kind of bucket. So maybe here in Java would be someplace in perhaps Bukidul, Sabah, right? Do they have any issue of clean water now? Yeah, or yeah, because they are in the cars kind of area. So it is woman that has to find or to fetch water for the family, like access to electricity. There is no access to stove. That you have to find some branches to cook, and you have to bring the dirty clothes to what is it, to the river to wash with your hands, not with the laundry kind of service. So all of these domestic responsibilities were shouldered by women. Whereas in the developed world, there is a misconception in literacy activity, in reading itself. Reading is considered a feminine activity, which will have to be indoor inside a room, and it's considered as passive and lonely and quiet. Whereas a masculine activity would be playing outdoor, like playing rugby or football and with your friends, and very masculine and very physical. So this kind of misconception in reading practice itself has contributed to the higher performance of girls in reading. So these two, despite contradictory kind of results, they both highlight the importance of using gender perspective to look at literacy. From the global one, now we go back to Indonesia and to look at it in a closer perspective. And if you're looking at, see, the rate is the same. Girls outperform boys, but and here the what is it? Sorry, outperform boys. But see, if you look at the literacy rate here, and this is in 2020, the last one would be, I think last year, they released kind of um, report on literacy rate that the literacy rate now in Indonesia, the illiterate population in Indonesia is 0.04, which means that we have accomplished around 99% of our population can read. Isn't that amazing? Like that's a real achievement that the government has been very proud of. But then when we compare this national data with PISA, although PISA is arguably speaking controversial as well, we cannot just believe in one kind of data set. Where is Indonesia? Indonesia? Which number? Can you see? No? You see the red arrow down there? Yeah, that's Indonesia, right? It's number 8. We are ranked. We've got the 8, but it's from below. So why is this contradictory data? On the one hand, we celebrated that we only have 0.04 literate population, but on the other hand, the literacy rate is very low. So why is the contradiction? Because this is what we are discussing in our group with Dr. Padu, because there is this different understanding of literacy itself, and we call it as the great divide in literacy. There are two ways in understanding literacy itself, whether it is seen as an autonomous, decontextualized academic skill, or it is actually we are looking at literacy as a social practice. So how to tailor literacy practice to be relevant for social purposes, whether it's for women or for other marginalized groups. And autonomous or functional literacy is skill-centered writing and reading. So if some of you here has got the experience of 5 minutes reading in the beginning of the lesson, but then after that you didn't do anything with it. So perhaps that's one of the, I will say, the well practices of literacy itself. And it is predetermined and measurable that you can actually kind of measure the literacy competence, and it's product oriented. But then on the other hand, ideological literacy is what people do with literacy. And this is my concern, because when we're looking at this kind of data and the reality that we are having that cannot be captured by this PISA kind of test is the availability.
Sí.
Perhaps I'm a monster and I can absorb energy in Spider-Man. Yeah, where were we? Yeah. So when we're looking at these, what this data doesn't capture is actually the availability of some kind of grassroots literacy movement, like Taman Bacaan Masyarakat, or the grassroots literacy group in the community, which are very it's everywhere, especially in Jogja, where Pak Sabar was working before, and the Women's March Seven. It's the study that I'm going to share. So the research question, sorry for the very long background, the research question that we formulated from those kind of story and narrative is that what alternative understanding, there are so many contradictions, right? What alternative understanding may we draw on in giving new meanings to literacy as practiced by grassroots communities? And because we would like to have a gender perspective of it, then we have to find community literacy group that is also having some kind of a feminist movement as well. So we picked Women's March Serang in Banten, and we were in contact with them during the pandemic. And it was actually born out of the literacy community in Cilegon early in 2011. So in our research, then we believe and we assume that literacy or critical literacy is not only a window to understand the social context, in this case, women, through literacy practices, but also it can be as a way to empower themselves and empower and advocate other women and other vulnerable groups. Why? Because Women's March 7, they also receive many, well, let's say, women victims or affected, those who have got some, those who need like emotional counseling or legal assistance due to gender harassment, gender discrimination, and sexual abuse. And the study was a 2-year qualitative study on women Chamatsiran. And the first year was the research itself. We did a qualitative exploratory research by talking to them through focus group discussion as well as in-depth interview. And the second year was through pengabdian masyarakat or capacity building for their members. Because they're really concerned on writing and publication, then we provide them with the assistance of kind of writing training. We also did a digital document analysis from their Instagram account. And we use critical discourse analysis in our lens to understand the contestation between dominant and alternative discourses. So the dominant one would be functional literacy, and the alternative is critical literacies. So why it's critical literacies, not critical literacy? Because there are many forms of literacy itself and that is not as fixed and measurable as functional literacy. And we also based our theoretical work from Paulo Freire. Have you read the work of Paulo Freire? Yes. Do you remember the title of his very fundamental work? Pedagogy of the Oppressed, correct. And the banking knowledge of education as well. So in his work, if you read his work, there is this concept called consciential. Why do I sound like Mandarin? Spanish. No, actually, it's consciousness raising, right? So according to Freire, you cannot. Yes. Oh, for the microphone. Yeah. Thank you, Masofian. So according to Freire, you cannot understand. If you cannot understand a single word, if you cannot read a single word, then you do not really understand the whole world. So here, isn't that magic? Yeah, I made that myself, thank you. So here, the very slight difference here is the word L itself that provides some kind of barrier between the world and the word. And the L here, can you guess? Yes, it's literacy. So this is not from Freire. I just played with the word myself. So according to Freire, in order to read the world, Ikra, right, then you have to be able to read the word. So in making the relationship between literacy, gender, and social inclusion, there are three lines of arguments that we can actually weave through. The first is consciousness raising, that the practices of critical literacies, the efforts to enable women to read critically and to write according to their and having a very critical discussion in their issue is a form of raising their consciousness of the unequal world, of the patriarchal world that they are living in, so that they can advocate themselves and make their voices heard. Because when you're looking at the many sexual abuse of gender harassment that women experience, sometimes they feel very discouraged to tell them because there is no effort of consciousness raising, right? So here, critical literacies, as practiced by this woman's March Serum, can accommodate their feelings, the values that they hold,
their cultural experience, as well as their ideology. And it is demonstrated as well that critical literacy that they practice, I will tell you what they are after this in a more technical level, that it can serve as a communal resource contributing to their life. That's also argued by Barton and Hamilton, the fathers of new literacy studies. So here, to make the long story short, the lack of reading and writing, and this is from Chandra Mohanty, also the black feminist from the United States, the lack of reading, writing, and critical skills, just having a public discussion and being able to advocate themselves and others exclude many women and men from feminist consciousness. So it's not that literacy and empowerment having a direct relationship, no, but when you are literate, then it is a precursor for women's empowerment itself. And this kind of framework might challenge the solely economic approaches on women's empowerment because when you look at the donor, foreign donor on women's empowerment, they will always calculate if you are able to make women read, then you invest this amount of money in the future or in GDP or so on. But that is a very what is it, economic approach, and that is something that we want to challenge through our study. So these are some literacy practices that this woman are doing, and in summary, we could categorize them into three kind of approaches: the direct literacy approach, the political approach, as well as the digital approach. The direct literacy approach aims to promote reading culture, to raise their feminist consciousness as well as their critical thinking, as I have shared previously, that they were coming from a literacy community group. So they've got this small library, they call it as Rumah Buku library. They also have mobile library in a motorbike. They also have book picnic in which they have this theme kind of discussion regularly, and the program is called Stealing Knowledge from the Book, Mencuri Ilmu dari Buku. They also have writing competition for their members and for their non-members on women's issues, and they have also publication in the blog. And the political approach, the aim is to advocate women's rights. They did many protest marches. Those days, the RUU PKS was not yet finalized, so they march on the street inside a shopping center. People were looking at them very weirdly. What are these women doing? But they were still consistently voicing their so that women's voices were heard. And they did many campaigns, public discussion, and also providing legal assistance for those seeking justice, from the victims of gender-based harassment and sexual abuse. And because it was during the pandemic, then they shift and they adjust their direct literacy approach into digital approach as well as the political approach, and because they want to maintain their feminist activism during the pandemic. So they did a social media campaign to keep noisy about what they were fighting for at OPKS, as well as they did some writing competition. So it was still visible during the pandemic. So to make the long story short, these women's marched around have practices many critical literacies as the forms to empower themselves and advocate women's rights. Thank you very much. I look forward to your feedback.
You might have your water to drink, doctor, please. Okay. Well, it's very interesting, of course, because literacy never, make us lag behind. Meaning that when we are trying to be like a literate person, I believe that we can also improve our own skill abilities in many aspects of life. And you mentioned several heroes of women in Indonesia, for example, like Kartini. I think all we know that she is the hero for education, including, of course, to advocate the right for women to receive education. And I think we also know there is like women, hero women in the world that received the Grammy Award, who is Malala. Yes, yeah, Malala. I think many people of us know about her. What is Grammy Award for the music? And she received Nobel Award. Maybe he will receive that. I mean, oh, it's like music, yeah. Interesting and funny from me. Okay, well, it's not easy for me as well to catch up all the very sophisticated discussion that you are presenting with us. And I have some note here, and if I have to make some reflection, I need 1 week actually to wrap up your sophisticated presentation. I have some very important notes for me that some of them are new, and I do agree with what you said that actually when we want to see the world better, we have to be able to read. It's one of the spirit of literacy, and one of the literacy practice in our society, I believe that in school they have their own program to raise the students' interest in doing a reading, such as writing as well. And in Bebejendika, School of Your Daughter, we have at the time DEAR movement. DEAR stands for drop everything and read. So basically, students should do nothing but reading for 15 minutes. We hope that the student will get some more insight from the book that they read. So is it good for your daughter to be there? Hopefully. Okay, thank you very much, Doctor. Well, audience, um, it's now for us to come to the section of discussion, which is you may have some concern, comment, or reflection related to the topic. Please we expect to have some people of you as our audience to raise your hand to whatever you want to say. So I think please, if you have something to say, we have one already. Okay, one first, then we have two, and I think we can have three for the very first session for the discussion. Okay, we have three, Mbak Ajeng, and then Paranto, and the one behind it. I cannot see clearly who you are there. Okay, you will get your chance. Please, Mbak Ajeng.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Hajang, Dr. Zilpa. I want to ask about how do you respond to the current issue of blaming the curriculum about our literacy skills to high school students that maybe everyone knows about this issue. Because I believe it's not just about the curriculum, but also many things that can be the factors. Actually, I'm also a read aloud trainer, Read Aloud Indonesia, which founded by Ibu Rosi Setiawan. Surprisingly, there is no man in that community. I think also the involvement of father to read a book with in the family also, including one of the back structure also. So I just want to know how your perspective about that, because the family is also involved, the culture of reading also involved in that issue also. Thank you so much.
Are you asking about the curriculum of high school or the read aloud community that having no men?
No, the curriculum, but no, actually the literacy skills. That's
national literacy.
yeah, that everyone is blaming about the curriculum, and but I know it's new curriculum, and actually it's the higher students, and we can dragging step back that maybe need for 5 or 7 years to see the result, but everyone is learning about the curriculum. But I know maybe it's one of the factor, but also there's many factors that, and because yeah, I know because you mentioned about reading is very, very attached with the feminine yeah, feminine activity. Surprisingly, I also found it in my community. There is no man inside, so that's what I want to know from your perspective. So, thank you. Thank you.
That's a very brilliant question, Ajahn, and it's really amazing to understand and to know that you are also one of the member in Read Aloud community. Did we meet yesterday in the equity in education class. Yes, okay, that's why you look familiar. I thought we might meet in the toilet or somewhere else. Yeah. Um, if we're talking about, like the macro perspective of our literacy condition nationally, then perhaps it is the literacy-rich environment that might help us to explain why we are not there yet, why there are so many, holes here and there, and why is this data on literacy in PISA reflected that way that we are low in literacy. So literacy, according to, correct me if I'm wrong, Butati Warni, so according to theory, a literacy-rich environment, it's not the job only of school, like the curriculum only that I agree with you that the curriculum is kind of cramped, that students learn too much. Like my very youngest daughter, she turned 6 years old this year. Yeah, this year. So now she is in the first grade, SD, kelas 1. And early this year, she joined kindergarten in Columbus. So I really see the difference condition of her bag. She used the same bag. So we bought this bag in Columbus, back in Columbus. And her bag, every time she went to school, is very light. But she got what is inside her bag is always reading. It's a theme kind of reading. It's level reading they call it, and she needs to read it like regularly, and the book will change every week. But once we arrived in Indonesia and I enrolled her to SD and I felt guilty about it, um, now her bag is really heavy. Like every day, back in Columbus, she only need to learn literacy and numeracy. So it's only always math and reading, math and reading and writing. But here it's got pendidikan agama, religion, and even sports with the book and the LKS. Can you imagine that? The theory of doing a backflip, like she needs to learn that as a bachelor degree student of sports science faculty, which it doesn't make sense to me. If you're doing sports, you need to be able to perform whatever it is, right? But in our curriculum, the students need to be able to write it down, like the theory of doing a backflip, as well as arts. It's not just producing or experiencing aesthetics through arts, but the theory of producing arts. It's like the bachelor degree student of an arts faculty. So I think also the approach in our curriculum structure and the way we manage our education is also one issue when we try to relate that in to literacy-rich environment. So here is the formal education dimension, and another one is the family dimension and the environment, like the community. Is there any community library in the students' environment where they live? Is there any library like the one here in UEE, Triple IU, that they can access? Or do they have to travel to Jakarta to access the many collections for children's books? How many children's books can they access in the library? That's another question. And how many children's books can they access in their family? Do the family have, the budget to buy books every month, or, like provide children with books? So that's family. And also, who will read the book? Is it just the mother or the father instruct baca buku, but they're just scrolling Instagram and TikTok. So that's also part of the literacy-rich environment. The reading culture that is created in the at home and at school also contributes to students' reading habit. Um, so that's why at home I'm a strict mother, and here Asabar was actually one of the teacher, the ex-teacher in my daughter's boarding school in Yogyakarta. So when my daughter had to move to Yogyakarta for her boarding school, she had no challenge of, you know, having divorce with gadget because she had a very restricted gadget time at home, and she will have to read novels. So that's why every month I have to keep on buying her novels. But how many families in Indonesia are able to provide that kind of books for children? They might be struggling with providing food on the table daily. Books is something very, what is it? Not primary, but it's tertiary kind of needs. So it's not in the priority. So, and also research suggests that, I read it somewhere, but when father reads out loud a book for their children, there is a high correlation with the literacy rate of the children actually. And here I think some studies also mention that it is always mother who reads out loud the books for their children because it's kind of feminine. It's the job of the mother to nurture their children. Di Islam mungkin jadi madrasah gitu ya. That's the very, I think, patriarchal kind of construction that women should be the madrasah of their children. But how about the father? Only the head of school? Who did nothing? So and the mother is becoming the teacher, the cleaning service, the chef, whatever, doing all the domestic. So in this very patriarchal culture, I think a gender perspective is really important in looking at literacy condition.
Thank you, Professor. Well, so Baranto, thanks. Now the question is next is Baranto. Baranto. Baranto.
Thank you very much. My issue concerning our discussion is all about from the past introduction by Nina and the presentation by John concerning gender. I think talking about gender, it's sometimes grounded by the people's or individuals' perspectives. For example, talking about division of labor, it sometimes happens that there are some works when if you assign to women, women can't work clean or effectively. But if you assign the same task to men, you will find that the tasks are conducted well. This is one. And another issue is all about maybe talking about effectiveness. For example, if I paid a visit a certain institution, then I find maybe there is no a single woman in a certain position, especially in the highest position. Maybe what comes in my mind is that maybe in that area there is no woman who maybe are educated and can fit that position, or there are only men who can fit that position, or it's just an argument. Maybe, for example, in our country, especially in the village, you can visit different many institutions, and you can't find a woman who is in the first, in the highest position. Why? Because we assume that women are good and better in maybe taking care of the family. So they stay at home. That's why even at madrasa, whatever you graduate, you as a woman, you can't be given opportunity or for the chance to teach others, but men are given opportunity to teach. So I think gender and about this distribution of work, it depends according to the perspective, individual perspective, and the area itself, and not think that maybe women can do so. It depends according to the environment. That is my only concern.
And the question is?
No, it's no question. Yeah, it's no question. It's just yeah, sorry.
Yeah, I do agree with you. I'm sorry, your name is?
Siraju Sembarant. Siraju.
Saraju.
Or Barantur.
Balancer. Right, okay, thank you, Saraju. Yes, I do agree with you that there is a division in who doing what works and where. Like there is a division of public space and private space in which women belongs to the private space doing domestic works, and men belongs to the public space that they can lead and they can be outside the house and doing all this stuff visible, but women doing a lot of invisible labor. And that's why I think one of my current research now is on care works and perhaps related to care economy. Although women are doing those invisible, unmeasurable domestic works at home, taking care of their family, their children, the elderly, they're unpaid. However, we need to acknowledge that as real serious works, because if they don't do that, the men cannot go out and perhaps doing the real work with money and doing the invisible work. So yes, I do agree with you, and that's my concern now. I share with your concern as well. Thank you.
Thank you again for your response, Doctor. Before we go to the next question, let me just little bit share with you that perhaps the division of the what's called with proper things to be done with certain gender could be maybe not always right, of course, because when you perceive like father should go work for making money, mother should take care of the children, in some cases, in our society, maybe it didn't really work that way. For example, actually, my mom was, the one who's really responsible for her all daughter and sons, including me. That she was working for making money. She was taking care of me. She was also educating me about religion, about simple basic stuff for sons, something like that. So maybe, just maybe, the certain condition could push people to go beyond their respectively constructed by the society that this only can be done by men, this can only be done by the women. Maybe it could change. That's kind of established perspective. So if you are concerned about this issue, maybe it could be one of the interesting topic for us to explore more.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting research project that you might want to pursue for your master thesis or PhD dissertation. And you've got the experts here in the faculty as well, so you are in good hands.
Sure. Thank you again for the sharing. Well, we still have time. Please, I saw earlier there is someone raising her hand. So, Mbak, please, could you stand up and Mas Bian is going to pass the mic. Please introduce yourself, your name, and please share with us your thought.
Ya, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good afternoon, Dr. Zulfa and Mas Sabar. I am Sultan Hasanah. I would like to ask a question, but before that, I would like to show my uh, gratitude for this very insightful seminar. I do agree why it does matter to discuss about gender, because yes, mother is a very source of human's existence. Based on the human capital perspective, investing in women's education even gives a very significant return, because yes, women are mothers, and then we raise, educate with the children, which will give more benefit from the economic point of view. My question, as someone who was born and raised in Serang, Banten, Yeah, I was like, wow, it's Serang, okay? So I feel so guilty that I wasn't aware of the existence of Women's March Serang, and then it became your like research, and then you conducted it for 2 years. I'm very proud and feel guilty at the same time. My question is, why did you choose Serang? Because as I googled just now, we have many other women who march in other provinces. And the next question is, does it have something to do with the Women's March emerged in the US in 2011 as the response of Donald Trump's speech, which is considered as a threat for women's rights? I think that's all. Thank you. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullah. I think you are the moderator of Masraf ceremony during the convocation.
Convocation,
Yeah, yeah, I remember you
Thank
very
you for
well.
remembering me.
Yeah, you're unforgettable, so don't worry. Yeah, I was. It's kind of amazing that you're coming from Serang. So perhaps you might want to triangulate or cross-check my research to the field. But yeah, the research was done during the pandemic, so it was all online. It was during I think before Delta, before Delta, and then the Delta variant. So it was fully an online kind of research. So we did everything through Zoom and WhatsApp and other kinds of online communication. We didn't manage to come to Serang ourselves, like physically. But then why we choose Serang? Theoretically speaking, because when we're looking at Women's March branches, even the Women's March like a headquarters here in Jakarta, they didn't really come from a literacy community. So even though they have the same like political campaign and political kind of approach in their works, in their feminist movement, however, with Women's March Serang, it suits with our data, with our purpose of our research, that they have many direct literacy approach that we can learn. So, and why? Because, well, I just explained this to you because one of our research member was the sister of the leader. So it's like during our very daily conversation and talk in the office, it's like, oh wow, I think that will be a very interesting topic to explore because we're concerned about literacy and we're concerned about gender. Why not having these two fields intersect? And I think this is what is it, a kind of insight for me and perhaps for you, that in order to do a research, let's take a multidisciplinary approach in our research, because I think that is where, or it will be a start of a novelty. It will contribute to the novelty of your research, and it will produce hopefully a publishable article because you draw upon a multidisciplinary perspectives. And is it the same with Women's March in the United States? Yes. So Women's March was originally born out in the United States as a resistance towards Donald Trump. Because he's a misogynist, blah 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 kind of thing, and well, said that now he's running for presidency again, but hopefully it's Kamala Harris, whatever my background is. But we have hope in women, right? So I think she will be the first female president of the United States. Yeah, but then Women's March was then mobilized across continents, and then it found its localized context with the movement, with the objective, and so on. But still, the aim of the organization is to advocate women's rights. And with their contextual kind of setting. So in Serang, correct me if I'm wrong, Uswa, that in Serang, the cases of women's sexual abuse and harassment is relatively high. And the UMR, what is it, the salary is kind of low, and it is an industrial kind of city in which what is it? There is a correlation between the kind of setting with um, domestic violence. So there are many cases that these women's march Serang had to take up in relation to those files. So it's data for us as the researchers, and we did the least that we can do to make their voices heard.
That's all. Thank you very much again. Could you please give some rounding applause together for us? This way. Thank you very much again. Well, please prepare for another session of Q&A if you still have some things. Bu Doctor, again, itu some literasi of women, something like that. It's kind of empowerment actually that we are having literasi movement strategies and best practices, including you mentioned earlier about KBM, kegiatan TBM, Taman Belajar, Taman Baca Masyarakat. It's, I think, see this phenomena was one of the sign that our government society are having or rising the awareness of literacy for children, something like that. So when we go some in several cities, they have the TBM, Taman Bahasa Masyarakat. And hopefully it can really rise our awareness of the importance of literacy, reading, and then writing as well, and of course, like critical thinking. Okay. Well, audience, we still have some more minutes. Actually, we are wondering if you are still having some of curiosity.
Can I respond to your statement? Just
Please.
TBM.
All right. Yeah.
Yeah. So my current research with Ibu Dr. Kaliwati here and with Professor Leslie Moore at the Ohio State University for the project that currently I'm doing here at the Triple IU is actually on TBM itself. In Kudus. So it's a small city where I was born. And this TBM was quite unique as well because it opened up the door for those who were expelled from formal schoolings due to verbal abuses or physical abuses. There were many students, well, not many, but arguably many is something that you can measure, right? Their students, we call them students or mentees, let's call it mentees. Their mentees in TBM were expelled from a schooling because they were slapped by the teachers, for example, because they had blue socks, not white socks. Then they got traumatic with the experience, and then they got the equivalency degree. As equivalency degree, the Indonesian word is SL paket, kejar paket, yes, equivalent degree is kejar paket. So this community literacy group or TBM, they provided that kejar paket for their mentees, for their students. And they had a critical literacy approach by creative writing as well as creative writing and also reading out loud and other critical literacy practices that give the students hope again in education and in literacy. So I think that's why our Minister of Literacy, Bu Sophie Dewayani, who is now in the Ministry of, I don't know where the ministry is now. She is because it's kind of different. I think she had these critical approaches in looking at literacy. Before this, it was pure functional literacy, but now the national literacy movement embraces community literacy because of the new literacy studies that advocate that a more richer literacy environment and embracing TBM as one of their focal points of literacy. So it's a richer and it's a more, I think, a holistic approach in literacy movement. Yeah.
That's what you did. Talk about the reasons. Okay, again, so audience, if there is something you want like to share, we have to raise but we have two people raising their hands, or more, four now. Do we have time for four people? Okay, I think I saw first Fadila raising her hand, and the one from the other side. Please give to the mic, pass the mic to the Fadila first, Mas Bian. Please, Fadila. Okay, yeah, Fadila first. So, please.
Thank you, Mr. Boy, for the opportunity. Dr. Zulfa, thank you for your presentation. Maybe I will begin this question with my experience because I can say that I experienced some of traumatic impacts with literacy. For example, being writer, we get what is it, 10% of the royalty, and then we have to pay tax 20%. And then being teacher, like it is related with literacy itself, and then the salary of teacher is so low, and also food is as expensive, right? So I think I was curious. So what will we do with literacy itself? Because I also experience meeting with people who are literate, but they tend to underestimate classroom society. So being literate but arrogant. And when I enter Dr. Tati class, uh, she gave me a lot of readings, and then it kind of healed my trauma because
Thank you, Dr.
Yes, the readings introduced me to the and also book sharing. Like is like hold one book, and then the audience is all the students because of the economic backgrounds. And also book cutting is like sharing with children about their books with the positive feedback, and then teaching moral values including gender. But let's jump to the first experience, how to be literate but independent economically, because some people also say to me, why we have to be literate but we cannot be independent economically. Thank you, Doctor.
Yeah, thank you very much for the question. Mas Sofian, can you please help me to go back to the slide because I cannot operate it with this one, the one with the table.
Okay.
We cannot do it with this. Go back. No, the other one before this. Yeah, go back, go back. Yeah, this one. Stop here. Right. So perhaps I would love to show this table again because seems like you have a contradictory kind of statement. I mean, from your observation, which is right, the observation is accurate. This person is literate, but doesn't really demonstrate how a literate person should behave, you know. So perhaps we need to look at this table or division or the great dividing interest again. So perhaps the person can read and write in functional way, right? But then ideologically, he's not. So I think we need to take a look or define literacy in a more comprehensive way in order for you to be able to respond to that. And that's why after readings a lot of papers from Butati, then you can find the answers, right? Yes. Now the question is, I've got a question.
Being literate, being independent economically. Okay. Because some people like
Oh, okay. Yeah. So the hope or the promise of being a writer, is that what you mean? Yeah. Teacher. Yeah, like teacher as well, educator, writer, the ones fighting for literacy. Yes, saya bisa juga ya. I can, as a lecturer, we have this pressure to publish, right? And in order to publish, you have to go through a series of, well, let's say a series of perhaps sadness, crying, and a series of revision. And by many series of revision, as a writer, you didn't get anything. And it's a closed access of the article. It's only you who can access the article. But the journal can, sell that in a relatively very expensive price. And if you want your article to be published in open access, you have to pay maybe 1,000, 2,000 US dollars. That's very unequal, right? So we're living in an unequal world, especially when you are a very genuine kind of educator, and we're living in Indonesia, in a developing country in which um, if you want to be rich, then don't be a teacher. So maybe that's the short summary of it. But I think, and in my understanding, and why I wanted to be a teacher, and why I'm doing this profession, because it's not just reach that I pursue, but it is fulfillment. Teaching and sharing in this kind of very honorable forum is fulfilling for me. And doing this kind of research, interviewing women groups and their advocacy and their movement is also a fulfilling works. I feel a lot of, I can get a lot of lessons from them. It's very meaningful for me to be able to connect with them and interview them and to be able to write about them. It's something meaningful. So I think it is not that economic. We have to go beyond economic approach in approaching our profession, I think.
Thank you very much for your response, Doctor. I do also want to express our gratitude for your enthusiasm, guys, because you already raising your hand. But Dr. Zulfa remind me that there is a question actually online. Mr. Sufyan, let's address the question from the Zoom, and that will be the last. Okay, so should I read the question? It's from the Wisda. She was saying that humble question for Dr. Zulfa. Why do you choose CDA as theory or method applied in the study? How do you address the gender perspective using this theory or method?
Yeah, thank you, Wihda. I think it's a methodological question. And why CDA? I think um, pragmatically speaking, because I was trained in critical discourse analysis, I was trained in this tradition, so I feel comfortable using this method in throughout my work, throughout my research. And with CDA, with this research, I can identify what are the dominant discourse in literacy, and the dominant one is functional literacy, the autonomous literacy, and the alternative one is critical literacies as practiced by Women's March Center. So with this CDA as a method, I can see the discourses that emerge. And if you look at my works again, this is how I do it. It's pretty simple, I guess. You only need that discursive sensitivity to look at the emerging discourses in every issue that you're dealing with. Yeah, so because so these
Thank you very much. Wisdom for the really respond to your question.
answer the second one.
Second one,
Yeah, how do you address the gender perspective? Yeah,
Sure.
how do you address the gender perspective? First, because the subject of my research is women's group, so I have to find a tool that is relevant with the data right? And second, it is only using a gender perspective that I can identify and look very meticulously on what they're saying. And I think because I'm a mother and I'm a woman myself, so what is it? I'm more convenient as well in using this theory, and also more critical to be able to relate their consent with their activism and with their literacy programs. So it's a direct correlation or a direct red line running through their breath, maybe as an organization.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Kus. Please, can we have like standing applause together for the very example of introduction Islam spot? It's exactly 2:30. Again, thank you very much for your participation, your contribution. We are sorry that we cannot accommodate or cover all the concern you still may have here. So the homework is that please go further to learn about this topic beyond this forum, of course.
I don't give any homework though. It's Pasaber.
I'm keeping because it reflects on me myself too to learn more about this topic because it's very of course important, especially I believe for the students who are having the concentration of the education and society. So I think it's quite very relevant for that. So we are having merchandise for the speaker. Please, who will give Budekan, Budin, please give the merchandise to the speaker. Okay, good job. Okay, so do you take picture together? Okay, I will be sitting behind Arif as an audience. Oh, and that is good, the spirit. Thank you very much, everyone, again. So I think that's all for the 34th lunch talk of today. We wish that we will be seeing you again for the next lunch talk. So thank you for that. Let's close by reciting Alhamdulillah all together. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alamin. Very good afternoon, everyone, and have a nice day. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank